Yo, what's up? Avian here, and today we're going to talk about this weekend in college football, who won their games, highlights, stats, everything. I got you guys covered, and I'm going to show you what my rankings are, why they're in that place, and what's to come in the future. So without further ado, let's get into the video, guys. Alright guys, starting at number 1, to no surprise, it's the Georgia Bulldogs. They played in Charleston Southern, they won this game 56-7. Obviously, FCS school, they're going to win. Stetson Bennett started this game. He was 8 for 14, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. JT Daniels got to play and a couple other quarterbacks as well for Georgia. And they played okay. And then on the other side, we had Jack Chambers for Charleston Southern. He went 11 for 30, 55 yards, 1 interception. They stand a chance in this game, but, you know, that's expected. Then at number 2, I have Ohio State. They played Michigan State this weekend. They won that game 56-7. They were up 49-0 at halftime. And honestly, if they kept their entire team playing this entire game and kept their foot on the gas pedal, they probably could have got to 100. I'm not going to lie. But Ryan Day is not going to do that for obvious reasons because, you know, sportsmanship, I guess. Michigan State did not look good in this game at all. Kenneth Walker had 6 carries, 25 yards, and Ohio State, they had a few different carriers. Master Teague had 21 carries, 95 yards. Henderson didn't play in the second half. CJ Stroud was the big guy, though. He went 32 for 35 for 432 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that was basically all in the first half, which is just insane. It's absolutely insane. Ohio State had 655 yards in this game to Michigan State's 224. Their defense played so well. Now, if Ohio State can play this type of defense, they might be able to beat Georgia, and maybe by a touchdown or two if they play in the college football playoff. But we'll see how everything goes when they play Michigan. And at number 3, we have Cincinnati Bearcats. They played SMU this week and then won that game 48-14. Tanner Mordecai did not look good in this game. He was 15 for 26 for 66 yards and 1 touchdown. 66 yards, that is it. Cincinnati's defense came to play this game, and Desmond Ridder, he was 17 for 23, 274 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. And for rushing, Jerome Ford, 20 carries, 82 yards. And Trey Siggers for SMU, 10 carries, 64 yards. The biggest story of this game is Cincinnati's defense. They held SMU for under 200 yards. That offense, under 200 yards. It's kind of insane. While they have 544 yards this entire game. So that's obviously the reason Cincinnati won, and they looked really good. And next we have the Alabama Crimson Tide sitting at number 4. They played Arkansas. They won this game 42-35 in ugly fashion. Arkansas, they hung tight in this game. KJ Jefferson was 22 for 30, 326 yards and 3 touchdowns. Alabama's defense is looking very, very suspicious, especially their secondary if KJ Jefferson can throw like that on them. And I do not give them a big chance against teams that have a high-powered offense. But on the other side, they do have a guy that's in Heisman contention, Bryce Young, who went 31 for 40 for 559 yards, 5 touchdowns. Absolutely insane. Brian Robertson ran 27 times, 122 yards. He gave them a good dynamic on the ground as well. They're a very balanced team. They had 671 yards, but they almost let Arkansas have 500 yards in this game. So their defense is definitely a question mark, which is why I put Ohio State and Cincinnati above them. Next, we got the Michigan Wolverines. I have them sitting at number 5. They played Maryland. They won this game 59-18. Again, Maryland, no surprise them getting blown out by the best teams in the Big Ten. Talia Tagovailoa was 19 for 33, 178 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He's been a turnover machine this year, and I honestly thought he would throw for more yards against Michigan. But on the other side, Cade McNamara was 21 for 28, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was very efficient. Rushing, Hassan Haskins was 20 carries for 78 yards, and then Fleet Davis had 11 carries for 71 yards. He actually had a better run percentage against Hassan Haskins. But the story of this game, Michigan, their defense held Maryland. Even though they let them have 360 yards, Michigan had around 500. I think they had a little bit more than 500 yards this game. But they just looked like the better team, and we cannot wait. Ohio State, Michigan next week. Next we got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They played Georgia Tech. They won this game 55-0. This is the most dominating game Notre Dame has played all year, and they're just getting better every single week. Jack Cohn, 15 for 20, 285 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, 11 carries, 56 yards. Honestly, it didn't look like they put up as many yards, but they just capitalized on all of Georgia Tech's errors and how they played their game. Jordan Yates was 14 for 28, 96 yards. He threw an interception. They also had a fumble in this game. So turnovers, another thing for Georgia Tech. That's why they lost. And up next, we have Oklahoma State. They played Texas Tech. They won their game 23-0, shutting out the Red Raiders. They shut out a Texas Tech offense. Now, Granted, Texas Tech lost their head coach and everything like that, but it's still a good offense. But Oklahoma State's defense is for real. They only let Texas Tech have 108 yards. 108 yards in this game. And I'm going to give kudos to Texas Tech too, because they played good defense this game, and you're not like accustomed to them playing good defense. Smith, though, he was 9 for 29, 83 yards. He took 5 sacks in this game. It was ugly. And then Sanders, he was 19 for 38, 239 yards. He had a touchdown. Richardson ran 20 times, 84 yards. You know, they did what they did. They had around 427 yards. And Oklahoma State, they got to look forward to Oklahoma next week, and we'll see what happens there. And then they'll probably play Oklahoma again in the Big 12 championship game. Then next, at number 8, we have the Baylor Bears. They played Kansas State. They won their game 20-10. Everyone was thinking that this was going to be an upset game, that Kansas State would win because of Baylor's win against Oklahoma and the emotion of that game. But no, Baylor's defense is so good. It didn't matter if their offense laid a dud, to be honest. Gary Bohannon, he was 9 for 14, 76 yards, 1 touchdown, not the best. Skylar Thompson, 15 for 29, 158 yards. Deuce Vaughn, 11 carries, 128 yards. That dude ran all over Baylor, though. He ran all over them. Tristan Ebner, he had 12 carries for 68 yards. And honestly, Baylor didn't have a high-powered game. They only had 387 yards. You know, Kansas State had 263. I think the big thing was maybe the fumbles that they lost, and then the interception that Kansas State threw. Kudos to Baylor. They're my number 8 team. And then next we got Ole Miss. They played Vanderbilt. They won 31-17. Obviously, they kind of disappointed me. I thought Ole Miss would win by a lot more. They should score way more than 31 against Vanderbilt, and they probably shouldn't have let Vanderbilt score 17 on them in the first place. Matt Corral was 27-36, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Mike Wright, 22 completions, 44 attempts, 241 yards, and he threw an interception as well. Rocco Griffin, though, for Vanderbilt, 26 carries, 117 yards on the ground. He ran pretty good. They had 454 yards to Ole Miss's 470. So I don't know. Ole Miss, I put them at number 9 just because of what they've done, but I might have to flip-flop them with Oklahoma, which is my next team. And Oklahoma, they won their game against Iowa State 28-21. And this game was definitely more of a defensive game just because the entire game, Caleb Williams, he was only 8 for 18. He had 87 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Kenny Brooks, 17 carries, 115 yards. But the biggest thing was just both defenses played so well against the other offense. Brock Purdy, he was 30 for 41, but only 281 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He played a lot better than Caleb Williams, but Breece Hall had 19 carries, 58 yards. He did not run well on Oklahoma's defense. And honestly, I think Iowa State had more yardage. They had 361, and Oklahoma had only 305. They didn't pass over 100 yards in this game, and Iowa State only ran for around 50. So both defenses kind of traded off, but Oklahoma had the last laugh. I didn't think they looked really good in this game, which is why I didn't put them ahead of Ole Miss. So that's kind of where I'm going to keep them. And then next we got Wisconsin. I have Wisconsin at the 11th spot. They beat Nebraska 35-28 at home. Again, Nebraska was in a close game. They scored a touchdown every quarter, but it was not enough. Poor Nebraska, guys. They played so well in this game. Martinez, he was 23-35. He had 351 yards. He did have 2 costly interceptions, but he also had a touchdown. Graham Mertz played a little bit better. He was 12 for 18, 145 yards, 1 touchdown. But Braylon Allen for Wisconsin, man, 228 yards on 22 carries. That's a 10.4 average. He had 3 touchdowns in this game, and he was the difference. Even though in the receiving game, it was Samori Toure for Nebraska. He had 113 yards, and he kind of just kept Nebraska in this game. But in Nebraska fashion, they lost at the end over a controversial call, which was 100% pass interference on the Wisconsin DB. He hit the Nebraska wide receiver way before that ball got there, and the refs just don't want to see Nebraska win. But Nebraska did outgain them. They had 452 yards to Wisconsin 397. It's just sad. They're the best 3-8 team out there right now. And then next we got the biggest game, the biggest upset I think of the week, and it was Utah and Oregon. Utah came in this game ranked 23 against Oregon. Oregon, the 3rd ranked team in the country. They won 38-7 over Oregon at home. And Anthony Brown, he was 17 for 35, 231 yards, 1 touchdown. Cameron Rising, 10 for 18, 178 yards, no touchdown. Tavion Thomas, he had 21 carries for 94 yards. Byron Cardwell, he was 7 carries, 35 yards. And honestly, this whole game was controlled by Utah the entire game. was controlled by Utah. Their defense, their offense, they controlled the pace, and they just didn't let Oregon score. And that was the biggest surprise. Oregon couldn't get anything going. And a lot of people saw this coming, but I didn't see Utah winning by that much. I thought it would be maybe like by 3 or a touchdown. But they really exposed the Ducks, and now the Pac-12 is not going to make the playoff yet again. And then right behind Utah, I have Oregon. After losing, I've dropped them all the way from, I think I had them number 3 all the way to 13. They deserve it. They lost by 31, and that's just bad. And then after that, we have UTSA. They won their game against UAB 34-31. They were losing the majority of this game until we got to the third quarter, and then they finally held on. It was a crazy ending in this game. Dylan Hopkins, he was 15 for 22, 254 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and an interception. Frank Harris showed out. He was 25 for 36, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sincere McCormick really didn't play that well in this game. He had 20 carries, 65 yards. But Dwayne McBride, 24 carries, 144 yards. That's a 6.0 average, and UAB, they outgained UTSA by 100 yards, but they could not get it done, and UTSA stays undefeated. And then next we have Houston to round out the 15. They won their game against Memphis 31-13. Clayton Tune, he was 20 for 34, 264 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Seth Hennigan was 21 for 45, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. They really didn't do a lot in this game. It was pretty boring. I saw highlights and I saw a little bit of the game, but Houston kind of controlled the narrative the entire time. So, let's just get into the next game. Next, I have is Michigan State. Michigan State is going to be sitting at the 16th mark after losing their game. So they're going to drop 10 just because they lost to Ohio State by 49 points, and that's unacceptable. Then next we have BYU. Now this game is very weird because they played Georgia Southern and they won this game 34-17, but after the first half, I'm pretty sure it was like 20-17, and BYU did not look good in this game at all. Jaron Hall, he looked good though. He was 17 for 29, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Connor Zagleski, I think that's his name, 11 for 14, 121 yards, and 1 interception. But I think Algier was the one that really kept this game in BYU's favor, because he ran for 25, 134 yards, and then their stats, BYU destroyed them in the stats, but this game was so close, and BYU didn't really look good, but that's why I kind of have them at the 17th spot and I didn't move them up any. Next we got Texas A&M. I have them sitting at the 18th spot. They played Prairie View A&M. They won the game 52-3, FCS school. Nothing really to talk about. Zach Calzado, 10-14, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Trezon Conley, 1 for 75 yards. Awful. I mean, they ran the ball good against them, I guess. 24 carries, 100 yards. But yeah, that's about it. And then the next game, we got Iowa. Iowa won their game against Illinois 33-22. Again, they did not look good in this game. And I don't know what is wrong with Iowa, but they cannot get consistent play. Their quarterback was 6 for 17, 83 yards, 1 interception. Brandon Peters for Illinois was 16 for 36, 248 yards. At least he had 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. Tyler Goodson saved them in this game. He had 27 carries for 132 yards. And they lost the yardage battle to Illinois. Illinois had 312, and Iowa had 255. I don't know what's wrong with Iowa, but that's why I have them sitting at 19. Then next, the number 20, we have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, they won their game against Virginia, 48-38. Brennan Armstrong was 36-49, 487 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then Kenny Pickett was 26-41, 340 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. These 2 quarterbacks played pretty good in this game other than the interceptions. Vincent Davis ran pretty good for Pittsburgh. He had 12 carries, 100 yards. The really big thing was Jordan Addison. He had 202 yards receiving in this game, and that's probably why Pittsburgh won. Even though they did lose the yardage battle, 514 to 509. No defense in this game at all, like a normal ACC game. And next, we have Wake Forest. I moved Wake Forest all the way back to 21 just because they lost to Clemson. And I thought Wake Forest would be able to put up more points against Clemson, even though it was at Clemson. And Clemson won this game, by the way, 48-27. So they dominated. They won by 21. This was the team that I kind of thought that we would see this year from Clemson, even though Wake Forest doesn't have a defense. So that kind of makes sense. And Clemson has a good defense, and they have a lot of the talent. So I did pick Clemson to actually win this game. I didn't think Wake Forest would lose by the amount that they did, and I thought they would have a better scheme. But anyway, getting into the stats, Sam Hartman, 27-43, 312 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. DJ was 11 for 19, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Kobe Pace, 24 carries, 191 yards against that very bad Wake Forest defense. And I kind of just saw it coming. And because of Clemson, they hit back the top 25. And then after Wake Forest, I have Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. They beat Liberty, a good Liberty team, 42-14. They kind of just flexed their muscle. Levi Lewis, 14 for 25, 166 yards, 3 touchdowns. Malik Willis, 14 for 34, 162 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Liberty just did not look good. They made so many mistakes. They fumbled the ball twice. They threw 3 interceptions. They turned the ball over so many times, and they did not give themselves a chance to win. They even outgained the Raging Cajuns, I think, by 3 yards, or the Raging Cajuns had 3 more yards, something like that. So it's just very unfortunate of all the turnovers Liberty had in this game. And then after Liberty, we have Clemson. We already talked about them. Beat Wake Forest 48-27. And that's that. And then after them, we have the San Diego State Aztecs. They beat UNLV 28-20. Now, San Diego State, they're just a team that I haven't had move. They've been sitting at the 25-24 spot for like 4 or 5 weeks for me, just because they really don't play well. They don't do good against these really bad teams, but they're 10-1. So I have to keep them in the rankings in my mind because they're consistent. They keep winning. They're just not showing up. But anyway, Lucas Johnson, 18 for 24, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Justin Rogers, 15 for 21, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He played better. And then honestly, UNLV, they had 400 yards in this game, and San Diego State almost had 300. So again, they got outgained, they got outplayed, but they still won the game, and that's all that matters. And then finally, to close out my top 25, I have Appalachian State. They played Troy on Friday, I think, and they won 45-7. They've been blowing every team out that they've played. They're 9-2. I think Appalachian State deserves to be in the top 25. Chase Bryce was 17 for 24, 212 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Gunnar Watson was 11 for 21, 109 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Nate Noel for rushing, he was 15 rushes for 102 yards. He ran pretty well. Appalachian State, they held them to 142 yards while they had 445. So they just look good. I decided to rank them instead of North Carolina State. But yeah, that's going to be the video, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about my top 25. Next week, we're actually going to talk about like what I think about the championship games and the playoff, how I think the format's going to go, who I think is going to be in the top 4, the first 2 out, and all that type of stuff. So be sure to watch out for that video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.